The most wanted web series, Peaky Blinders, is here, brought to you by Flix Prism. At last, today I'm going to explain our very own Sigma Man, Thomas Shelby, aka Peaky Blinders. This series needs no introduction, so finish up all your work and sit down to enjoy this mind-blowing series. So hit that like button with full energy and let's dive into our explanation. At the very start of the series, let me tell you the backstory of these Peaky Blinders. Listen carefully though, otherwise you won't understand a lot of things. The time is 1919. The First World War had just ended back then. Our movie's story begins in Birmingham, England, where a gang lived, known as the Peaky Blinders. This gang was run by the Shelby brothers, led by our movie's hero Tommy, or Thomas Shelby. In the online world, everyone knows him more as the Sigma. In this family, there are three other brothers: Tommy's elder brother Arthur Shelby, younger brothers John and Finn Shelby. They also have a sister named Ada Shelby. All of them are members of the Peaky Blinders. But there's one more important character in this group, the Shelby brothers' Aunt Polly Gray. Basically, these Peaky Blinders are of Irish and Romani descent. But after winning the war, the Peaky Blinders became the terror of Birmingham. Their main gigs were gambling, black market dealings, or offering protection to someone in exchange for money. These gangsters had a style that was totally unique. The hats they wore were called Peaky, and inside those hats they kept deadly sharp blades. That's basically where their name Peaky Blinders came from. Though Arthur was the eldest among the brothers, Tommy was the smartest and most cunning, so he led the entire gang from the front. But during that time, apart from the Peaky Blinders, there were other small gangs too, like the Lee Gang, the Communist Gang, and the I-Genius. There was also another gang led by Billy Kimber, whom everyone feared quite a bit. But Tommy Shelby had long harbored a desire to establish his gang, not just in Birmingham, but across the whole world. That's why he always ignored everyone's advice and did things his own way. This was the main background story of the Peaky Blinders. Now let's dive into our actual tale. In the first season, we see Tommy Shelby riding a hefty black horse into an area. Being the head of the Peaky gang, the entire area trembled in fear of him. He's come here to meet a girl who knows magic and witchcraft. He calls the girl over. Shelby sprinkles some magical powder on his horse and tells everyone that tomorrow his horse will race. "If you all bet on my horse, you'll 100% win money," he says. In reality, all these Chinese folks believed in that girl's magic, so they started thinking maybe Tommy's horse, Megan Boy, would win the race because of the magic. As a result, the entire Chinese community started betting on it. But Tommy's real plan was to lose that match so all the betting money would go straight into his pocket. In short, he's about to fix this race. However, his elder brother gives him quite a scolding over this, because he says if you get caught cheating the Chinese, our lives could be over. Plus, if you fix this without gangster Billy Kimber's permission, he won't let us off either. But Tommy reassures him, "There's no need to worry, I'll handle the whole thing." You can tell our Tommy is a seriously technical guy. Anyway, after that we see him at a house where he's confronted by Freddie Thorne, the leader of the communist group. This Freddie doesn't exactly work against them, but deep down he does. He wants to wipe out the Peaky Blinders, so whenever he gets a chance, he doesn't hesitate to rile up the common folks against them. Plus, Freddie's so clever that he secretly starts a romantic relationship with Tommy's only sister, Ada. That way, he can dig up all the secret information about the Shelby family. You get it, this guy's a real snake. In the middle of their chat, Freddie tells Tommy that a high-ranking police officer is coming to Birmingham over an arms robbery case, and both our names are on the suspect list. But hearing all this, Tommy doesn't get too shaken up. Meanwhile, a guy named Danny shows up at that bar and starts smashing things like a madman. In reality, Danny was so mentally shattered from the First World War that sometimes he'd think mortar shells were about to hit him. Since Tommy and Freddie knew this, they calm him down. And as he leaves, Tommy tells the bar owner, "Put whatever damage he's done under the gang's name, I'll cover it." That night, all the Shelby brothers sit down for a meeting about their Peaky business. There, Aunt Polly finds out that a hardcore officer has come to their town over some arms robbery case. So she starts grilling Tommy about whether he's involved in anything like that. But Tommy denies it, saying maybe one of the communists did it. She takes him into a church and tells him to confess the truth, saying he can't lie in front of God. So Tommy admits, "Yeah, I'm tied up in this mess." In reality, he'd sent 3 gang members to London to steal car engines. But by mistake, instead of opening the box with car engines, they stole a different one. And that box had Lewis machine guns, 10,000 bullets, 50 semi-automatic rifles, and 20 pistols. Meaning, Tommy didn't knowingly steal this stuff, but because his luck's so good, it just fell into his lap. Hearing this, she tells him to get rid of it fast, because if the Peaky Gang's name gets tied to such a huge arms robbery, they'll all be done for. But Tommy says, "I'm not letting this go that easily. If someone wants their lost arms back, they'll have to pay me for it." You get it. Tommy Shelby isn't about to let such a golden opportunity slip away. Meanwhile, that hardcore police officer, Chester Campbell, arrives in Birmingham and realizes there's no such thing as law in this city. Along with that, he figures out that all the officers here have been eating bribe money to fill their own bellies. So, on his first day, Campbell suspends all the city's police officers and replaces them with trusted men he's hired himself. The very next day after the hiring, they nab Tommy's elder brother, Arthur. They beat him senseless and start questioning him about whether he's involved in the arms robbery. In reality, everyone outside thought Arthur was the head of the Peaky Blinders, but they had no clue that Thomas Shelby was a step above his brother. Anyway, even after tons of torture, Arthur swears to God he knows nothing about it. Then Campbell says, "Fine, I'll believe you. If you didn't do it, then come help me with this case. It'll benefit us both." Saying this, he lets Arthur go for the day. Meanwhile, a beautiful girl shows up in Birmingham whom no one's seen before. Her name's Grace. She goes to a bar and asks to work there as a bar girl. But the bar owner, seeing her beauty, says, "You're too pretty. This job doesn't suit you." Still, somehow the girl convinces him and starts working at that bar. One day when Tommy comes to the bar and spots Grace, he's totally stunned. Because in this town, there's no rule about keeping girls around. So with a mix of curiosity, he asks her, "Are you a prostitute? If not, I'd say you've picked the wrong place to work." Hearing this, Grace is completely taken aback. Later, when Tommy gets home, his brother tells him, "The police asked for our help with this arms robbery thing, so maybe we should assist them." But Tommy stays quiet there, because he's the one who pulled off this stunt. Anyway, right after that, we see that same guy Danny again, heading toward a shop with a lot of fear. In reality, he's having that same old problem again. Just then, when a shopkeeper comes at him with a knife, Danny, in a panicked state, kills him. 2 guys see this murder from a distance, and Danny bolts from the scene. But even after running, he can't save himself in the end. Because this time, Tommy doesn't let him off. Tommy says, the 2 guys who were there that day during the incident were that shopkeeper's brothers. They're Italian, and they'll kill you one way or another. They'll murder you brutally and bury you in the ground. So it's better if I send you up top in peace. Daniel realizes he's got no options left here. So, as his last wish, he tells Tommy to take care of his son like his own. Then, even though he doesn't want to, Tommy shoots Danny dead in front of those 2 guys, his blood splashing all over him. On the other side, we see that police chief meeting Britain's Prime Minister Winston Churchill. There, the Prime Minister says this case is super important, and he fully trusts Campbell can recover all those weapons. Getting this motivation from the Prime Minister, Campbell gains even more courage, and this time he heads to a museum. There, an astonishing story unfolds, because we see that beautiful girl, Grace, with him. You get it, Grace is a spy sent by Campbell to dig up info on the Peaky Blinders. Here, Grace tells him it's not Arthur, but his younger brother, Thomas Shelby, who's the real head of the Peaky Blinders. Plus, she's researched and found out that besides their betting business, the Peaky Blinders are into other stuff too. But they don't have the capacity to pull off such a huge arms heist. Even after hearing all this, Campbell's radar doesn't let the Peaky Blinders off the hook. Meanwhile, Tommy's elder brother is giving him an earful over a flop job. It's about Tommy's horse. Megan Boy won the race, and it cost him a ton of money and losses. But Tommy tells him, "I did this on purpose." Now the Chinese will believe it was that magic powder that made them win. Then this news will spread across Birmingham, then to London and all of England. And right when crores worth of bets pile up on Megan Boy, I'll make him lose and rake in a massive profit. Think about it, Tommy's no joke. He's a next-level businessman. But right after that, we see something else. Danny's still alive. In reality, Tommy staged his death to save him from those guys, and now he's secretly sending him to London as a member of his Peaky Blinders gang. See, Tommy Shelby's brain is on another level. This scene wraps up the first episode of the series. At the start of the second episode, we see the Shelby brothers meeting up with a gang called the Lee Brothers. Tommy's come here to grab a racing horse, but instead of the horse, he decides to offer his car. At this decision, his elder brother pipes up, "What the hell? You're giving away our family's antique car for a horse? You bloody idiot." Hearing this, the Lee brothers can't stop laughing. But Tommy loses it seeing them laugh at his brother. So he says, "Why the hell are you laughing at my elder brother?" One word leads to another, and when they call Tommy's mom a whore, Tommy starts slashing them up with his iconic cap. I told you before, this cap's no less than a weapon, because it's loaded with razor-sharp blades. With those blades, they tear the whole gang apart and head back. Meanwhile, Inspector Campbell orders all the police to comb through every house in the city. No matter what, they've got to find at least one trace of those missing weapons. Following that order, the police turn the whole city upside down. At that time, Ada was with someone. So, thinking it's a police raid, she hands it off to someone else and flees the city. In reality, back then, the police had crazy restrictions on communists. If they saw more than 3 communists together anywhere, they'd nab them all. Anyway, on the other side, the police check Freddy's house and find a prescription with her name on it. Then the police start suspecting there might be some deep connection between this communist party and the Shelby family. So Campbell heads to the church this time, where he meets Ada and quietly threatens her, saying, "I know Arthur isn't the leader of the Peaky Blinders. If you want to save yourselves, tell your leader Thomas to meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m., or he'll be in serious trouble." Meanwhile, when Tommy returns to the city with the horse, he sees the police have completely trashed the place. Raids have hit every house, harassing everyone. Now he's got to teach this hardcore officer Campbell a lesson. So Tommy comes up with a killer plan. He gathers up all the pictures of Britain's king from the whole city, piles them up in the fish market, and sets them on fire. Then he tips off a journalist with some cash, telling him to make sure tomorrow's newspaper runs a story saying, "Government folks are insulting war veterans under the guise of raids, so we burned the king's pictures in protest." Man, oh man, this savage move works like a bullet. Because the next night, Prime Minister Churchill himself calls up Officer Campbell and rips into him big time. The king's already seen this news and is super embarrassed. "Next time, don't trouble anyone with your raids," he says. Hearing this mess, Campbell totally loses it. Tommy's way bigger than he'd thought. Meanwhile, seeing Ada, Aunt Polly gets a weird suspicion. So when she checks her out, she figures out Ada's pregnant. With wide eyes, she says, "Tell me who the father is." But Ada says, "If I tell you his name now, you'll chop him into pieces." Hearing this, Polly's at a loss about how to break this to Tommy. On the other hand, after the mess with the Lee family, they carve Tommy's name on a bullet and send it to him as a threat. So another enemy gets added to the list. While bringing that horse from the landowner, he runs into Grace, and she offers to let him keep his horse there. Tommy's starting to feel a bit of sympathy for this girl too. Later, we see a ton of bids piling up at the race on his horse, Megan Boy. And right there, when Polly shows up and tells him about Ada's pregnancy, Tommy's head just explodes. He heads straight to Ada. Kicking everyone out of the cinema hall, he says, "Tell me who the father is." Then, in a mix of anger and fear, she says, "The father's that guy who was your school friend and saved you in the war." Tommy realizes it's Freddy, that sneaky bastard using his sister behind his back. But now he's stuck on what to do. By then, the race results come in, and it turns out their horse Megan Boy lost this time. So his plan didn't quite work out. But Tommy refunds everyone's betting money to win back their goodwill. Then Polly tells him to go easy on Ada, because she feels Freddy genuinely loves her. But Tommy can't accept that no matter what. Now Tommy heads to Campbell, and there he straight up offers him a deal. He says, "You want to recover the guns, and I want to run my business smoothly. So I want to make a deal with you. You won't mess with my work, you won't harass my people. Basically, you won't stir up any trouble in my business. And in return, I'll give you the location of those stolen guns, because I'm the one who stole them." Hearing this, Campbell's eyes light up. Even though he's not thrilled inside, he can't turn down Tommy's deal right now. After the deal's locked, Campbell goes to Grace and says, "Get Tommy under your control however you can. Through love, through your body, whatever it takes. Those stolen guns are with him right now." She agrees and dives into her mission. Meanwhile, the horse Tommy got from the Lee family suddenly catches some disease, and the others start saying it's a cursed horse. They deliberately dumped this on us so our other horses would die too, they claim. Hearing this, Tommy's mood tanks, and with no options left, he shoots that horse dead himself with his own gun. After killing the horse, Tommy's in a lot of pain and heads to Grace's bar. There, Grace comforts him and spends some time with him. Then Tommy asks her to sing him a song. When she asks what kind, he says, "A sad one." Grace says, "A sad song will break your heart." But Tommy replies, "My heart's already broken." You've probably seen this emotional scene a bunch of times on repeat. Anyway, he invites Grace to a race and heads back from there. The next day, when Aunt Polly was about to take Ada for an abortion, she runs into Freddie right then. Seeing she didn't run off after tricking him, Freddie's thrilled. And Freddie proposes marriage to her, saying, "Let's run away from here and start a life somewhere else." But Freddie says, "I'm not scared of Tommy, so if we're building a life, it'll be right here." Later, we see Tommy and his brothers playing cards at a house. Right then, the city's most powerful gangster, Billy Kimber, shows up at that house. A big gangster like him showing up means some serious trouble's brewing. Billy walks in and says, "Which one of you is a Shelby? Come out." Then all three Shelby brothers step forward together. While the others get flustered, Tommy stays cool as ice. Billy says, "You guys fixed a gambling gig without telling me. That's a big mistake. I'll beat you down on the streets." Saying this, he starts to leave. But Tommy's made of different stuff. Instead of getting mad, he hands him that bullet and says, "I know you've got beef with the Lee brothers, and now they're our enemies too. You've got muscle power, I've got brains. If we team up against them, no one can stand in our way." Hearing this, Billy's pretty impressed, and he decides it's a solid offer. When Billy softens up a bit, Tommy says, "I feel honored to work with you." Then Billy snaps, "Nobody works with me. They work for me." Saying this, he tosses a coin on the ground and tells Tommy to pick it up. In short, he wants to make Tommy his underling in front of everyone. Seeing this, all his brothers gear up for a fight, but Tommy shuts them up with one glare and picks up the coin himself. Think about it. This guy's brain is so sharp and cool, he knows exactly how to handle any situation. Now, will he just let this insult slide? To find out how he'll pull this off, let's jump to the next episode. It starts with Tommy at a pub where two members come to meet him. They've found out that the guns stolen from BSA were nabbed by the Peaky Blinders. So they say, "Hand over those guns and you'll be swimming in cash." But Tommy denies the whole thing and handles the situation. Meanwhile, Grace is secretly listening to this entire convo. So, to dig deeper, she starts tailing those two members. But a little way out, one of them catches her. The guy figures out she's a spy. With no options left, Grace has to shoot him dead. This incident shakes Grace up big time, because it's the first time she's killed someone and stained her hands with blood. Meanwhile, Aunt Polly tells Tommy that despite all her warnings, Freddie isn't leaving the area. She wants Tommy to forgive him and give them a chance. But Tommy flat out refuses to let him stay in this city no matter what. There's a reason behind this too. It's that the police already know Freddie's back in the area and that his sister married him earlier. Now the police tell Tommy, "If Freddie stays here, we'll arrest him along with your sister." Arresting his sister means the whole family's reputation goes down the drain. So he gives Freddie 200 pounds and a ticket to get out and head to America. But Freddie doesn't take it. Instead, he pulls a gun on Tommy and tries to fight him. Tommy seizes the moment, beats him down, and they both end up pointing guns at each other. Tommy could have killed him right there. But thinking of his sister, he lets him go. On the other side, Grace heads back to the museum to meet Campbell. There, Campbell begs her not to take any more risks and says she can back out of this mission if she wants. But Grace says, "Since I'm already in this, I can't back out even if I want to." As the next race approaches, Tommy heads to the Chinese market, and there he likes a suit. But it turns out Billy Kimber had already bought it. As soon as Billy Kimber arrived, everyone thought there might be trouble. His presence signaled potential conflict in Birmingham. But Tommy said, "Look, I got information that the Lee brothers will be here at tomorrow's race and will rob all your betting money. If you need help, let me know. I'm ready for you." As Tommy was about to leave, Billy said, "Bring that beautiful girl from your house to tomorrow's race as well." Tommy replied, "I've already invited her." Meanwhile, Thomas Shelby's elder brother Arthur had already fallen into depression because everyone was blaming him for that gun theft matter. But Thomas Shelby told him the truth today and informed him, stating, "These guns are with me." Don't get disheartened. We have machine guns now that no one else in this area. So at this moment, we are the biggest kings of this area. After that, Tommy wanted to give him a surprise. He went to that bar and said, "This bar is yours from today." That night, when Tommy fell asleep, just like every night, memories of the horrors of the First World War came into his dreams, because of which he couldn't sleep properly, even at night. That night, Danny returned from London, and he gave Tommy information that some people in London were blaming Blinders for an IRA murder. He asked, "Did you do this or not?" In reply, Tommy informed him that they didn't do it. Then Danny promised him that to save his life, he would always stay by Tommy's side. Meanwhile, this morning, that much-awaited race, Thomas Shelby and Grace, started getting ready to head there. The previous day, Tommy had told Grace, "I'm taking you there to track Billy Kimber. Your job will be to enchant him and stack him up." The next morning, the much-anticipated race was about to take place. Following the plan, both of them dressed up beautifully and went to the race. By then, Tommy and Grace had already arrived. As they spotted Billy, they started dancing in front of him. Billy, seeing Grace's stunning look, couldn't control his lustful thoughts. At the same time, the Lee brothers' men arrived and began robbing the bookies' betting money. Meanwhile, Arthur was preparing his gang for a fight against the Lee brothers. They armed themselves with various weapons and set off for the race. Just then, Arthur and his gang arrived and gave them a brutal beating, recovering all the money and handing it over to Tommy. Tommy then took the money and approached Billy. He handed it over and said, "Your men failed to protect you. From now on, you can take special protection services from the Peaky Blinders. In return, I will take 5% of the recovered money and make 3 legal bookings at each race." So, is the deal final now? Impressed by Tommy's swift actions, Billy was intrigued. However, he said, "We can make the deal if you let me have that birth lady of yours for 2 hours. In exchange, you can think of my wife as your own for 2 hours." Tommy had to make sure this deal went through no matter what. So he went to convince Grace to accept the offer. He even offered her a lot of money. But Grace replied, "I'm not a prostitute who will sleep with just anyone." Tommy said, "If you want to be part of my gang, you have to take this risk. If he gets too handsy, just kick his middle stump and walk away." Hearing this, Grace felt deeply humiliated. But if she wanted to stay on this mission, she had no choice but to go through with it. According to the deal, Billy took Grace with him, while Tommy took Billy's wife. But he casually said, "Your lady might be tall, but she's not my type, so don't even think of me doing anything." Meanwhile, Billy Kimber was trying to force himself on Grace. When things didn't go his way, he attempted to pull out his gun, but he didn't get the time or opportunity to use it. At the perfect moment, Tommy arrived and made a clever move. He said, "Mr. Kimber, sorry, I forgot to mention. This lady has syphilis. If you do anything with her, you'll catch the disease too." Hearing this, Billy immediately jumped away from her. And this is how Grace was able to save herself. Every episode, Thomas Shelby showcases his charisma in an unmatched way. The narrative advances to episode 4. At the beginning of the 4th episode, Freddie and Ada are seen traveling. Freddie had come to meet a big communist leader, Stanley Chapman. He secretly gave him 20 pounds to help expand their community. One of his men, named Jesus, brought him the news that Freddie had given money to a communist. Hearing this, Tommy came up with a plan. Then Tommy went to their shop, where Aunt Polly informed him that John wanted to meet them for an important matter. So the two of them left together. Meanwhile, the Lee brothers took advantage of Tommy's absence. They stormed into the betting office, trashed the place, and looted all the money. It was revenge for what happened at the race. When Tommy met John, John revealed that he wanted to get married. But as soon as he mentioned the girl's name, everyone in the room burst into laughter. John wanted to marry a girl named Lizzie, who was a professional prostitute. However, John was adamant about the marriage. He said, "She was like that before, but now she has changed. If I'm going to marry, it will be her." Tommy, being older and wiser, didn't try to intervene much. Just then, they received the news that their betting office had been wrecked. Everyone rushed back and found that all the money had been stolen. There, Tommy found a wire cutter. That particular cutter was used only when someone planted a hand grenade. Immediately, Tommy ordered everyone to stop moving. If a grenade was attached to a door or chair, moving it would cause an explosion. But then Tommy thought, if they had planted a bomb to kill him, it would have gone off by now. Since he was the main target, they would have placed the bomb somewhere only he would use. At once, his mind turned to his car. When he reached there, he saw his younger brother Finn had climbed into the car without opening the door. Tommy didn't say anything, but as soon as Finn opened the door, a pin lock triggered. Tommy quickly threw it outside, preventing an explosion just in time. Tommy knew he couldn't keep living like this. He had to resolve this matter. So he took a white flag and went straight to the Lee brothers. He met their leader and said, "I want to end our feud." Then he showed a bullet with the leader's name engraved on it. It meant Tommy was offering to betray Billy and switch sides in exchange for a large share of the territory. The leader asked, "You're working with Billy. If you betray him, how can we trust you won't do the same to us?" Tommy replied, "To earn your trust, I have an offer. I want my brother John to marry your daughter. If this happens, there will be no distrust left between us. What do you say? Deal final?" The Peaky Blinders gained a new ally. Now, Tommy had promised them the marriage, but John had to be convinced somehow. So Tommy went to see Lizzie, John's chosen bride. He called her aside and said, "You never told my brother that I was your client for 2 years." "Why?" Lizzie admitted, "I was afraid of losing him." Tommy then offered her a huge sum of money and asked for her services one last time before the wedding. At first, she refused, but as the price increased, her professional instincts took over. She agreed. This proved that Lizzie was still driven by money and would never truly change. When Tommy revealed this to John, he was shattered. He realized he should never have trusted a prostitute. Now, Tommy had to protect Freddie from the police. To do that, he planned to hand over the bigger communist leader, Stanley. Through Polly, he obtained Stanley's address and met with Officer Campbell. He struck a deal: "Release Freddie and my sister, and I will give you the location of a more important target." Campbell agreed, but he warned, "The Prime Minister is pressuring me to find those weapons. If I don't get them soon, my transfer letter will come. And if that happens, I will make your family suffer in ways even the devil wouldn't imagine." Besides that, he speaks so badly about his younger brother that Tommy instantly goes to shoot him. But because he has a higher level of intelligence, he manages to control himself. Meanwhile, after getting the address from him, Campbell does catch that community. However, this time he wants something else. He declares that he has no trust in the Peaky Blinders. So, until he can get hold of someone from Tommy's family, he won't be able to control Tommy. That's why he breaks his promise and plans to arrest Fred. His strategic maneuvering is evident, but he still doesn't know where Freddie is. So, many women try to get the address of Freddie from him. But the communists were so clever that none of them knew each other's actual addresses. So, to catch Fred, Campbell would have to wait a few more days. Then Billy Kimber arrived at Thomas's office. Actually, over the past few months, his business had boomed because of security protection. They had made a deal that if Tommy showed good work, Billy would give the Peaky Blinders a legal betting bookmaking license. That's why he came there. And getting that, the entire Peaky Blinders burst into joy. Because now they wouldn't have to secretly run betting places anymore. Then another story unfolds. At the Garrison Bar, Grace had become quite close with his older brother Arthur. So, taking advantage of that, she technically gets the warehouse location out of Arthur. After getting the location, she orders raids at all those places. But all they find there are cigarettes and wine, nothing else. However, when Tommy finds out about this raid, he suddenly shows up in front of Grace and says, "You asked my brother about our warehouse, didn't you?" Hearing this, Grace becomes startled, but thinking quickly, she manages to get away from there. Then Tommy takes her to a church and says, "You have to tell me some truths about yourself." "So, is it true that you're Catholic?" In reply, when she says yes, Tommy says, "You're lying. Because if you were Catholic, you would have made the sign of the cross the moment you entered this place. You've lied to me about a lot of things, but that doesn't matter to me." Saying this, he gently kisses Grace and leaves. It is evident that Thomas has become emotionally vulnerable toward her. Now the Shelby brothers show up with their brother John at the Lee family's place. At first, John thought today was going to be a massive fight, so he shows up fully armed and ready. But when Tommy tells him, "Today's your wedding, and it's with someone from the Lee family," he tries to bolt right then and there. He's like, "I'd rather die than get married." But Tommy says, "The future of our whole family's in your hands now. If you marry, this feud ends. If not, we're finished." Hearing all this, John finally agrees and sits down for the wedding. Seeing the bride, he actually likes her quite a bit, so he completes the wedding stuff with a lot of joy. Meanwhile, they'd invited his sister Ada to this family event too. Ada's 8 months along now. Even so, she downs a ton of booze at her brother's wedding and starts dancing like crazy. They try hard to stop her from doing this, warning her that something bad could happen. But because of her anger toward Tommy, she doesn't listen to a word. The result? That very night, her delivery pains kick in, and they rush her home. Now, they've got to tell the baby's father this news. So Tommy sends word to Freddie to come here. Meanwhile, that night, Ada gives birth to a beautiful boy, and Freddie rushes over in a frenzy. Freddie's overwhelmed with emotion seeing his son. But right then, something unexpected happens. The police show up that night, and they nab Freddie, who'd been on the run all this time. Seeing this, Ada can't even believe it, because they're dead sure Tommy technically lured Freddie here and got him caught by the cops. Ada gets dead serious, storms home, slaps Thomas in front of everyone, and calls him a traitor. But the real truth is, he didn't do this, because by now he had no issues with Freddie anymore. In fact, he was trying his hardest to save him. But what's hurting him more is Campbell. He broke his promise even after giving his word. So now, how Tommy takes his revenge. Let's kick off episode 5 to find out. The episode starts with Tommy standing in front of Danny's grave. Even though Danny's alive, why a grave was dug for him is a mystery. Meanwhile, Ada still blames her brother for turning him in. Even when Tommy sends her fruit, she rejects it flat out. Then Tommy heads to the garrison chamber. And going to Grace, he points to a poster mark in his diary and says, "What's this symbol for?" In reply, Grace asks, "Have you told anyone else about this besides me?" Tommy says, "No, just you. I haven't even told my family." Meanwhile, we see Arthur heading to a fight club where he's thinking about slapping taxes on it from now on. But there, he's stunned to see someone. Because after 10 years, he's laid eyes on his own father, Arthur Shelby Sr. Arthur brings his dad home, and his dad finds out that Thomas Shelby's the one leading the family now. With Dad back, only the youngest, Finn, and Arthur were thrilled. So when Tommy shows up there, he tells his dad to get out, because 10 years ago, his father ditched them for his own selfish reasons and left. But this pisses Arthur off big time at Tommy. Tommy says, "Bro, if you're so mad, you can leave with him too." Fuming, Arthur storms off to the garrison bar and goes to grab 5 pounds from the cash. Grace, who's there, asks him, "I noticed we send some money to London every month. Who's it for?" He replies, "That money goes to Danny." Grace, shocked, says, "But didn't Danny die?" Then Arthur spills, "He's alive and working for us." Hearing this, Grace starts suspecting. Then what's with the grave dug in Danny's name? Could those stolen weapons be there? So she heads to Danny's grave herself and gets an idea from the surroundings that maybe all those stolen guns are right here. Meanwhile, Arthur takes that money and goes to his dad, handing it over. Because his dad had asked him for cash to go to America and start a business. Plus, he wants to take his eldest son with him. Since Tommy's handling everything here, he figures there's no profit in sticking around, so he agrees to go with him. Later, we see a guy named Bion show up at the garrison bar to meet Tommy. He's a leader of some group. He says, "You killed one of my men. I could finish you off if I wanted, but if you hand over those weapons for cash, I won't." At first, Tommy denies it all since Grace is right there. But after a lot of back and forth, he admits, "Yeah, I've got the guns. I'll hand them over when I get the right price." The IRA leader agrees to the deal and says, "Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll show up with the cash, and you be ready with your location." Now Tommy's got to make another move, so he heads to Campbell. There he says, "I can give you info on that most wanted member you're after. In return, you give me police security tomorrow at 10 a.m. Campbell's no fool either. So he agrees, but he's got another plan up his sleeve. Meanwhile, the next morning, Tommy rushes home and tells Grace, "Two guys are coming soon, and their main target's to kill me. So take this pistol and hide nearby. When I signal you with no bar meat count, come out with the pistol aimed. But don't you dare shoot until I say so." Hearing all this, Grace gets terrified, but she's got no choice now. On the other hand, Campbell does send the police, but he tells them, "Let these two groups slug it out first. Then whatever's left, you go in after." In short, that jerk wants to kill two birds with one stone. By then, Tommy's sitting there waiting for them, and the two guys show up. Tommy offers them drinks, but one of them refuses. That's the sign it's kicked off. Then Tommy asks for the cash, and when they hand it over, he gives them a map to the weapon's location. Right after, those guys say, "You think we're letting you off that easy, punk?" Saying this, they point their guns at him. Right then, Tommy yells, "Count!" Grace comes out from behind and in a panic shoots one of them dead on the spot. Then a massive brawl breaks out between Tommy and the leader. At one point, Tommy's nearly choked out and about to die. But then he remembers his war days, and in a flash, he gathers his strength and fights back. Right then, Tommy slams him with a path so hard the guy's face gets smashed in. Grace is totally shaken up in fear, so Tommy rushes to her and says, "I told you not to shoot until I said so. Why'd you do it?" Grace replies, "I didn't want to take any risks with you." At this, Tommy feels super grateful. When the police finally show up late, like in a Bangla movie ending, Tommy chews them out for not coming on time. Now you already know why they didn't show up earlier. Anyway, that night, Tommy drops Grace off at her place and tells her he cares about her a lot. By the way, if you're loving this breakdown, please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos. You can also support me with a coffee via the link in the description. The next morning, Grace heads to meet Campbell. There, she says, "I want to wrap up my mission. I've already taken revenge for my dad's murder." In reality, Grace's dad was an officer killed by IRA commanders, so she was out to kill one of them to avenge him. Grace says, "I know where those stolen weapons are. I can tell you if you promise not to hurt Tommy anymore, I'll give it to you. And in return, you back off from Tommy's path." Campbell realizes Grace has already gone soft for Tommy, so he promises her he won't touch Tommy anymore. But we all know this Campbell's famous for not keeping his word. After getting the info from Grace that very night, Campbell heads to that graveyard. And digging up Danny's grave, he finally finds the fruits of his labor, all those stolen guns. Think about it. Who's really fooling who and who's helping who? It's tough to tell. By morning, after all the weapons are recovered, Campbell shows up there and congratulates him. And right then, that old creep proposes marriage to her. I mean, like, this guy who treated her like a daughter all this time now wants to be her husband. Imagine the level of delusion in his old age. Anyway, hearing this, Grace is totally floored and saying, "You deserve better." Meanwhile, Tommy's dad, who'd swooped in out of nowhere, had lied to his eldest son, taken money from him, blown it all on girls, and was about to skip town. Right then, Arthur shows up, finds out everything, and flips out on him, hurting bad over his dad's behavior. He couldn't even imagine that after all these years, his dad would come back and screw him over like this. So, unable to bear that pain, he tries to hang himself. But because of his weight, the rope snaps at the last second, and Arthur survives this time. Now, to console Arthur in this state, Tommy comes to him and says, "Bro, don't stress over this. I'm here with you. You're an equal partner in our Shelby Brothers Limited." Saying this, he hands his brother a new business card and Arthur cheers up. But that same day, Tommy goes to the graveyard and sees all his weapons have been taken from there. He just can't figure out how this info leaked from him. He alerts everyone saying, since the police got our guns, they're going to come after us hard and fast. Just like he guessed, all the city's police start gearing up to nab them. It's because of this Thomas that Campbell couldn't win that girl over, and he's already got beef with Thomas from before. So when everyone goes to grab him, Grace takes Tommy and bolts from there to her place. Campbell heads to the Garrison bar, holds a guy at gunpoint, and demands to know where Tommy is. When that guy says Grace saved Tommy and took him to her place, Campbell breaks down inside. Because now he's 100% sure Grace has truly fallen for Tommy. So he tells his whole team to abort this mission, and he heads to Grace's place himself. There, he sees Tommy and Grace spending intimate time together, but his heart shatters even more. And without saying a word, he walks out of there. Meanwhile, Tommy and Grace have already expressed their love physically, meaning this is the first time Tommy is genuinely fallen for a girl. But when he finds out Grace's real identity, what'll happen to him? Just thinking about it is scary. Meanwhile, Campbell calls the Prime Minister and says his mission's done, and he wants to leave the city now. Meaning the Shelby brothers are totally in the clear now. On the other hand, even after losing all the weapons, Tommy's mood is pretty light, because those guns were causing him way too much stress. So now he's focusing more on his Shelby brothers' business with his whole family. Now you might think, oh, the series must end on a happy note. Nah, bro, there's still some unfinished business left. Thomas. To find out what that business is, let's jump to the last episode. It starts with a heartbroken Campbell, who's so crushed that he ends up in Chinatown to drown his sorrows. Lying in bed with a Chinese girl, old as he is, what's he got to lose? In a mix of rage and rejection, he gets so furious he ends up hurting that Chinese girl. Meanwhile, today Tommy's out to finish his final mission. Meaning today, the Peaky Blinders are about to take their pride and status to the highest peak by taking out Billy Kimber. For this, Tommy tells all his brothers to get ready and says, "Today's the final day." In reality, Tommy hadn't told anyone before when he'd kill Billy. He'd only told Grace which day he'd take out Billy Kimber. Anyway, his brothers, wherever they were, drop everything and start gearing up. Meanwhile, Grace heads to the museum to finally meet Campbell. But there, she runs into Officer Moss. Grace hands him a letter and tells him to shove it, then walks out. In that letter, Campbell had written, "You're a traitor who's betrayed your country and honor to help a gutter worm. My one question, why'd you do it?" With tears in her eyes, Grace says, "For love." While Campbell was in Chinatown, Tommy shows up there to buy a suit and finds out that, like other corrupt officers, Campbell's come here for some fun too. The situation's pretty interesting, so Tommy meets him. Seeing him, Campbell gets rattled, but Campbell says, "My job's done. I'm leaving." "But do you know how I found your weapons?" Tommy says, "Maybe it was just your dumb luck." But Campbell says, "By the end of today, your heart's going to break just like mine." You can probably guess what Campbell's hinting at. Meanwhile, Aunt Polly goes to Ada one last time and tries to patch things up, saying she had 2 kids too. But one day, the police raided her house, found a liquor factory, and took her kids away from her because of it. Saying all this, Aunt Polly explains to her, "At least no one can touch your kid, because you've got your dear brother Thomas over your head, who silently worked to save you and Freddie all this time." She even says he's planned to get Freddie out one way or another. Hearing all this, Ada's thrilled and lets go of her anger. Meanwhile, we cut to a jail where they're taking him to London today. Freddie's super scared, but that officer shows up and says, "Oh, don't worry, Tommy sent me to help you escape." Hearing this, all of Freddie's misconceptions about Thomas melt away. As per the plan, halfway there, that officer uncuffs him. And right then, we see Danny with a massive machine gun. Danny's here to pick up Freddie. And that machine gun you're seeing? Tommy had stashed it away earlier. So even without tons of weapons, they've still got a deadly machine gun in their hands now. On the other side, the Shelby brothers sit down for a meeting with their family. There, Tommy tells everyone, "Today's a very special day for us, because today we're going to rule this whole city." Right then, Aunt Polly brings in Ada and her baby Carl. Seeing Ada's kid for the first time, everyone starts cheering like crazy. Tommy says to her, "Sis, forgive me." Ada says, "Yeah, I've forgiven you." Then Tommy heads to the Garrison bar and starts handing out drinks to everyone in celebration. Right then, Grace pulls him aside and says, "I've done something really bad to you." But before she can finish, someone runs in with news. Someone tipped off Billy Kimber that we're coming to finish him, so they're all heading here to take out the Peaky Blinders. Hearing this, Tommy goes dead silent. because only Grace knew about today's plan beforehand. Grace betrayed him. Tommy figures out this was all Grace is doing, and falling into this love trap was a huge mistake on his part. Plus, their allies, the Lee brothers, had already left for the horse racing as per the earlier plan, meaning there's no one left to save them now. Tommy's mind feels like it's flipping upside down, but he's not the kind of guy to break down like this. So, thinking what's done is done, he pushes toward his goal. Meanwhile, he goes to Grace and demands an explanation for why she did this. Then Grace pulls out her gun and says, "Yeah, I'm a government spy. My job's done. Let me go." Tommy says, "Looking at your face, it feels like you really do love me. Plus, since you saved me that day, I won't hurt you. Just know this. If I see you here again after today, I'll finish you off myself." On the other side, she says, all the police in the city have vanished. Hearing this, Tommy says, "That's how it should be. Because I gave this info to the police department to get me taken out. So now, whatever we've got to do, we'll have to do ourselves." As time closes in, Thomas Shelby steps in front of his remaining brothers and gives a fiery speech. He says, "We've fought bigger wars than this. We might be few, but today we'll rip open Billy Kimber's crew's chests." Saying this, the Shelby brothers dive into the final battle. This scene here is the most epic in the whole series. Thomas Shelby front and center, with 7 brothers behind him. With their rifles and pistols, they face off against about 20 guys. Meanwhile, police officer James tells Campbell, "The 2 groups are facing off for a fight. We should go stop them." But Campbell says, "I've got no interest in dogs fighting. Let them battle it out. We'll go pick up the bodies later." You get it. Even as he's leaving, Campbell won't let the Peaky Blinders off without a final blow. Meanwhile, as the 2 sides square up, everyone waits for their leader's orders. Here, it looks like the Peaky Blinders don't stand a chance. But the whole game flips with one guy's entrance, and that's Freddy strolling in with a massive machine gun in hand. Seeing this machine gun, Billy Kimber can't even believe it, because he can't fathom a machine gun being at their doorstep. But what shocks him even more is another entrance. Ada and her baby show up. Ada's here dressed in black funeral clothes and says, "Since everyone's going to die in this fight today, I've already put on a widow's dress. There's still time. Please stop this fight, because today a lot of families are about to lose their men. If you still want to fight after this, then fight with me and my son, standing in the middle." Hearing all this, Thomas doesn't know what to do. But even after all this, Billy suddenly takes a shot at Thomas. Trying to save him, Danny takes the bullet and dies. In this sudden chaos with Billy's bullet hitting Thomas, he blanks out for a few seconds. But Thomas Shelby isn't your average guy. So with one jolt, he pulls out his pistol and lands a headshot on Billy Kimber. Man, oh man, I've rewound this series so many times, I've lost count. With Billy Kimber dead, his team's totally thrown off. And then Tommy tells them, "This fight was personal between me and Billy. So I want you all to clear out." As per his words, Billy's crew grabs his body and backs off. And the Shelby brothers head back with Danny's body too. After getting back, they pull the bullet out of Tommy's face first thing, and everyone gets super emotional over Danny's sacrifice. Meanwhile, Campbell was waiting for Thomas Shelby's death. But when an officer comes and says, "It's not Thomas," Billy's head got blown off. He's stunned too. Now Campbell realizes Thomas isn't like other gangsters. He's a player on a whole other level. Meanwhile, as Grace was leaving the city, Tommy shows up right in front of her. Seeing Tommy, Grace thinks, "Guess I'm dying by his hands now." But Tommy says, "I loved you with all my heart, no greed involved. What you did wasn't right, but that's in the past now." Grace realizes Tommy really did love her, but he's not going to hold her back anymore. So Grace says, "I'm heading to London. Here's my address. I've got a big business idea for you." Saying this, they part ways for now. Tommy heads to the Garrison bar and Grace reaches the station. After all this fighting, Tommy's exhaustion is finally hitting him. Even so, he writes a letter to Grace. He says he's torn about whether he should even go to her. So Tommy flips a coin to decide for himself. And right then, Officer Campbell shows up in front of Grace with a gun. As Tommy's coin toss ends, we hear a gunshot. Now we're left with a big question. What did Tommy decide and what happened to Grace? You'll get all these answers in Peaky Blinders Season 2. Since we've started this series, I'll be back with all the seasons quick for you guys. You'll find the link in the comments once the series drops. So, if you don't want to miss the full series, subscribe right now and turn on the bell notification. Oh, and hey, if you enjoyed this recap, please hit that like button and sub to my channel for more. Feel free to buy me a coffee too, via the link in the description. We'll catch up in the next video. Till then, everyone stay good and healthy.